Hey, you know what time it is. Scotty here. Thanks for tuning in. We've got another episode of the Hustle and Grind Pod. We've got Kamil from Fly Beverage Co. He's the COO. He's the CFO. He's even got another title in there too, but you're going to have to tune in to check it out. You're not going to want to miss it. We've got so many practical takeaways. Betting on yourself. Innovation. Keeping things moving forward. If you're not growing, you're dying. Please check us out. You won't be disappointed.
All right, Martin, welcome to our podcast, COO of Fly Beverage Co. So excited to have you here. I know you personally, but pretty excited to kick into talking business with you, man, because I know you got quite the story and you got quite the experience, and
thank you.
Going to bring quite a lot of value to the show and to our listeners. So welcome, my man.
Thank you. I'm humbled by the introduction, slightly intimidated.
Well, hold on. It's not just COO. We got CFO.
Okay, yeah.
SVP.
You got about 10 titles, don't you? Is that what we were talking about? Just three?
COO for the operation, CFO for the finances, and I also manage all our sales effort for everything that's non-branded.
Wow.
And we'll get into that because I think that's a really interesting niche part of your business that most people probably don't even know.
No, people don't know
really exists.
Yeah, so Fly Beverage, can you kind of explain to those that may not know? I don't know if, most Londoners do know about Fly Beverage Company, but can you explain the company, maybe when it got started, where it got started,
Sure.
And then when you got started with the company?
Yeah, it's a long story, so I'll try to make it quick. But
We got an hour.
my partners, Rob Kelly and Cathy Siskind-Kelly, they started the business 20 years ago. We're celebrating our 20th this year.
Wow.
Yep.
Nice.
And
Congrats.
So Rob at that time was involved in landscaping and Cathy was involved in construction. And Rob wanted to do something else, and then he was thinking about doing microbreweries for the beer. And then he met a consultant, an industry consultant, and said, well, look at this thing. This is blowing up. And it was RTDs, right, for ready to drink.
Oh.
Coolers.
Yeah.
20 years ago, way ahead of the curve there.
Already.
Way ahead.
So he said, oh, yeah, let's do this. And I like to joke around and say to Rob like it was a terrible idea because, if you know the alcohol industry, you understand how notoriously hard it is to succeed. There's a lot of obstacles ahead of you. Just getting the listings at the LCBO, now getting the listings with all the major chains. And so they came in the game not knowing all these things. So, they developed a bottle that no one could fill because it had a unique shape. So
yeah, with the wide opening, did they start that?
Yeah. So he started with that, but if you're in the beverage industry now, you know that you have to use standard packaging. If you don't have standard packaging, no one's going to make it for you. So he had this vision of this open mouth bottle, and then he started with the vodka cranberry, which is our best seller today. That was our first product.
Still.
Yeah, and so Rob and Cathy started out with that, and then They bought a plant. They got a lease. They had to fight with the government to get a license in order to get their alcohol permit, and it was a long, drawn-out process. Nowadays, it's easier to get a spirits license, but back then it was very, very hard. So it took them. They had to go to the MPs and get support, and it was the first permit in 100 years that had been delivered. Yeah. At that time. Now it's a lot easier, but back then it was quite an accomplishment.
Yeah.
Cathy played a big role in that and supporting Rob in his venture. And eventually, they had a product and, they went out to sell it. And they went to the LCBO and said, hey, we're here. And
No
the LCBO was like, who are you?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, well, we're this Ontario company that's got a product to sell. And so, okay, we'll give you 10 stores or whatever the number is in London. And they started like that. And then after 10 stores, it became 100. And then it was 200 and 300, and eventually, they got through all of Ontario. I wasn't with the company at that time.
Yeah.
So, eventually, I joined 8 years in. 8 years in. So I'm in my 12th year, I believe, with them. Yep. And when I joined, the company was doing well, but mostly Ontario-centric and really just one format, the plastic bottle. And so then what happened is that, Cathy and Rob told me that they wanted to make cans, right? We wanted to put our product in cans.
Yeah.
So then we started getting into the can business, and this one here we actually made.
Yeah. So Exponent, who's they're a friend of the pod, you guys can this.
Yeah, it's no secret. We try to be discreet with who our customers are.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this is delicious, by the way.
Yeah,
we try to
they're
be
good.
discreet with our customers, but Exponent has been very vocal about the fact that we make their products. So I'm comfortable talking about it.
Yeah.
So eventually we started putting Black Fly in cans, and we dealt with other co-packers. So the alcohol industry is very segregated. Brand owners, factory owners, right?
Yep.
You either have the assets or you have the brand. It's very rare they have both. But Black Fly had the plant because it didn't have a choice. No one wanted to make its plastic bottle. So we started dealing with someone else to make our cans, and really, really didn't like the customer service that I was getting. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where you feel the industry is upside down, meaning people that sell you something, you feel like they're doing you a favor.
Yeah, I think we've all experienced that in one way or another, right?
Not a fan.
Yeah.
So that was the state of the industry at that point in time. Like whoever was making canned beverages for brands, they had kind of like a semi-monopoly, and it felt like they were doing you a favor. Oh, please, yes, take my product, do it for me. And that just doesn't resonate well with me. That's not a business model that works. And so I said, there's got to be a better way to do it. So, with Cathy and Rob's blessing, and also we have another partner called Mike Pierce, which manages all the sales of the brand. So I credit, all three of them with, supporting all aspects of our business growing, but they play a big role in making Black Fly very successful. And so, we bought a canning line, and we just did it for ourselves. And then eventually, someone came knocking at the door, and we said, okay, yeah, we'll make it for you. But that was never the
Part of the
intention.
initial plan.
No.
Business model.
Yeah, we wanted to do it for ourselves, and we knew that we were going to have extra capacity, and so well, if we get to sell it, great. But if not, we won't.
Got the equipment, may as well run the lines.
Exactly. So, but the business plan was never predicated on that, and so we started making it in 2019. We started co-packing for other people, and within 6 months, our line was full.
Wow.
We were running 24/7.
Yeah.
And then our canning line, because at that point we had a bottling line and a canning line.
Yeah.
And, I'm young. I'm not ready to retire. And there was a need in the industry. So we said, okay, well, let's just invest in a much bigger line, the one that I showed you earlier.
Yeah.
And started, I was lucky enough to be able to get a commitment from a large customer that says, if you get the line, we will give you some money. So I had something to go to the banks with. Right?
To pay for the equipment, to get the line up and running.
So in my past life, I was a banker. So I understood the ways to talk to the financial institutions to get that backing, and then we did. And, very, very appreciative of HSBC, which is now RBC, for supporting us through our expansion plans, because, they're a real partner to us, and it's important to mention it. And so then we opened our big plant, and slowly and surely we went from one shift during the week to 2 shifts to 3 shifts to adding on a weekend to adding on another. And then, this year, for the first time, that line that you saw runs 24/7.
Okay, so just so the listeners, and they may not realize or even understand the scale. So when you talk about that line, how many cans are rolling through in an hour, and what does that trickle down to per minute?
It's a line so we do about 1,650 cans per minute. And just so that people understand what that is.
Per minute?
Yeah, per minute. So I could do the math real quick, or you could do it. But essentially it works out to...
was it nine?
Divided by 60. So you're looking at 27 cans per second, which is 3 times as fast as an AK-47.
Imagine. Yeah. Wow. And we saw that you were showing us a video. We saw that visual. It was pretty wild.
So it's
pretty awesome.
69 cases per minute, which is more than a case fabricated, a case of 24, right? Per second.
Wow.
And that thing runs 24/7, nonstop. Of course, there's downtime. So not all of the
planned
time is
downtime.
Yeah,
maintenance is obviously key, so you got to work that into the mix, right?
Yeah. Planned and unplanned.
Yeah.
And then we have another line which is smaller that runs 245 cans per minute. So that is also running 24/6. And then we have our bottle line, which is running 24/5.
Wow.
So we will receive anywhere between 50, 60 trucks a day in and out of just like product.
That's a whole nother element of logistics.
Yeah. And just to be clear, this isn't all Blackfly product. You're talking about the co-packing. This is a lot of different, like you pack for a lot of different companies and partners and that sort of thing.
So I want to say, I don't want to talk about the names that we co-pack.
No.
Because these are, they make a decision to come with us, and there's a certain level of discretion
of course.
that comes with it. Mm-hmm. But I can tell you this, is that we do a lot of the large companies that you'll see at the LCBO. So we're probably, I would say anywhere between 30 to 40%, maybe I'm exaggerating, but at least 25 to 35% of the products that you'll see in the RTD section at the LCBO, we would be involved in making. And then when you go to Costco, a lot of the stuff that you'll see over there too, non-alc, will be involved in manufacturing as well. So about 30% of our business is non-alc and 70% is alcoholic. And it's shifting more and more towards non-alcoholic, which is good for us.
Yeah, I want to talk about that.
But before we get in that, so what's interesting about this story is that in both cases, the plastic bottle and then getting going to cans, it's like screw the norm, right? We're going to find a new way, a new path, and because by the sounds of that industry on the co-pack industry, that kind of sounds like there was a bit of a douchiness there where, and clearly because you guys went out on a limb and figured it out on your own, everyone else came crawling to you because you probably treat people a little better. You probably don't give them that same douche vibe. Oh. And all of a sudden now your machines are rolling 24/7.
Well, it's a really good point. I mean, that when we get customers, this is what I try to tell them. You talk about your machines and you show them your machines, but this is just the price to play. Mm-hmm. It's just like having a car doesn't mean you know how to drive, right? And then I try to explain to people, and I think some people get it, and other people get it after the fact. The difference is the people, right? Because when you get into a jam, that you need to talk to someone.
Who can we rely on?
Yeah.
So we pride ourselves on certain key values, right? So flexibility being a big one in our industry, because you never know if your product's going to work or not work, and if it takes off, you need someone to back you, and if it doesn't, then you don't want your co-packer to say, well, you said you're going to do X, and now you're doing half of that. I don't want you as a customer anymore, right? So you gotta be flexible. You have to have transparency, because
I love that.
You have to, because they're hiring you as their plant, so they need to be able to see inside your operation, and you need transparency.
You're an extension of their business, a very important extension.
You are
obviously.
a huge extension of their business.
Yeah.
Then you need to have a sense of urgency. So I like to respond to all emails within an hour. I hate email black holes.
Yeah.
If I send you an email, if you can't respond, just say, I'll get back to you, whatever. I just want to know that you're there, that there's someone living at the end of my email. So I make it a priority to respond to people all the time, right?
That goes a long way.
And then honesty. Honesty is another one, because we're putting beverages into people's bodies. And so quality is very important. And there's a lot of quality hiccups. And it's not just about the liquid. Like sometimes, we'll have cans that leak, or we'll have cans that are dented. Or we put the wrong code at the bottom of the can, or we put the wrong code on the tray, or maybe the carbonation is a little bit off, right? But you need to be transparent about that stuff. And sometimes, there's accidents that happen where, the liquid will be just a little off and we don't feel comfortable putting it in a can. Yeah. Well, if you don't care, you just put it in the can.
Anyway,
but that's not what we do. We prefer to communicate with the customer and let them make the decision, right? And if there's a problem, also back up our work with our balance sheet. A lot of people in our industry, if there's a problem, they always try to do a smoke screen and make the customer believe that it was their problem. Oh, your can is leaking because the liquid was too acidic. Well, it's not. It's a seeming issue, right? So, and I feel that goes with honesty. So transparency, honesty, urgency, and flexibility. Those I think those are a big value on the co-pack side. The brand's got its own set of values. There's a brand story there. For co-packing, there's not a brand story.
Yeah.
And the story on the brand is less sweet, real fruit juice, so more real, less sweet, all Canadian, craft, full flavor.
On the Blackfly,
exactly.
Blackfly brand.
There's two different businesses, and they each have their own brand story, I would say.
So I love that.
Yeah, so we started like that, and then eventually, when you treat people the way that you treat a friend or a relative, right? Just because I'm taking your money doesn't mean that I'm going to treat you any different than I would treat my friend, my wife, my kids, or just someone that I met on the street. Sure, we have to have an exchange of money because that's where, title transfers, but we're together in this.
Yeah.
And if you lose, I lose.
Yeah.
So,
Man.
So you came in 8 years into the operation.
Yeah.
How did you find them? How did they find you? And then it sounds clearly like there's been an alignment of values from the beginning because you're still there. You wear 17 hats. So how did you guys find each other? And like, when did you know, like, shit, this is a good spot for me?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. So I used to be a banker and investment banker, and I did private equity. So I did the whole financial Bay Street thing. And, my wife comes from a family of entrepreneurs, just like your guys.
Yeah.
And my father-in-law, which owns Crawford Packaging, which is another large corporation, very successful in London.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Right,
Yeah.
Exactly. And then there's a fellow right there that's called John Ashby that runs it, and he does a great job. So my father-in-law ran it for a long time and then passed over the reins. And, when I was on Bay Street, we used to talk business. It was great conversations, but he says, you don't know shit about running a business. Right?
This is your father-in-law calling you out?
Yeah, he called me out.
Oh, so that lit that little flame probably. Eh?
So I have a little bit of like a chip on my shoulder when someone tells me I can't do something. So the first chance that I got, which was during the financial crisis, the housing crisis in the U.S., well, on Bay Street, a lot of people got turfed. And that made me realize that really, you're not in charge of your own destiny when you're working for large corporations.
Yeah.
So I said, I talked to my wife, and we decided to make the move to industry because I'm an accountant by trade, right? By education, I would say.
Yeah.
And then so we left everything in Toronto, sold everything. Then we moved to Woodstock, and I had a job in Paris for a construction company. Construction, it's either a thing or it's not your thing. Like, it's not my thing.
It wasn't your
thing.
thing.
No, it's not my thing. I don't like it.
On the bookkeeping, accounting side,
just everything, the
financial
industry.
side.
It's not my thing. I have a lot of respect for people that are good in construction work. It is a tough gig.
I believe it. Yeah.
So I didn't like that. So then I was ready to go back to Toronto, and then my wife was like, "Well, I'd really like to go to London because we had kids," and so. I applied. She's like, "Oh, look." She went on Indeed. She takes matters into my wife. I love my wife.
I've met your wife.
My wife is an amazing person.
She's
just
a
like my
force.
partners. My partners are amazing too. I love Rob, Cathy, Mike. I love everyone that I work with. But my wife is a very special person for me, and she always pushes me to do like crazy things. And she says, "Oh, look, on Indeed. They're looking for like an accountant at Blackfly." I said, "Okay, well, whatever. I'll send in my resume." And my partner, Rob, I'll give him all the credit. Like, he's an amazing people person. And I'm not saying that I'm an amazing person, but somehow he was able to see through my resume and my cover letter that there was 100 applicants, and he put me on top with a little star. He likes to say that. And, I called in. I went to meet Cathy, and it's such a small office. I met Cathy, Rob, and Mike. It was such a small office. And I met them, and I showed up with a suit, and they were wearing shorts, and they're like, "What the hell are you doing here?" I said, "Well, I don't know. Like,
I just came from Bay Street, man.
Exactly.
What do you expect?
Exactly." And we had the interview, and it went well. And I remember going to my wife and saying, "They're never going to hire me. Like, it's not going to work. Like, it's too small."
Yeah.
But they did. They reached out, and we went back and forth, and it worked. And then I showed up. It was a big risk. Back then, it was a big risk. Like, from Bay Street to like a small little company with like 15 employees.
Yeah.
But I saw the potential in them. They saw the potential in me, and that's how we linked up through Indeed. It's ridiculous.
That's wild.
But I think you're the kind of guy who bets on himself, right? Because you said it's a big risk.
You have to.
Right? It's a big risk for sure, but it's like, what else are we here for?
Yeah.
Really, right? So you knew that if it didn't work out, you're not going to be on the street tomorrow, right? Like, you can find another gig. And I think more of us just need to be able to bet on ourselves, right? Don't get held back. If something feels right and it's risky, go after it, man.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I read a book recently, and like, the price of failure in business is actually very low in today's society, right?
The value is probably pretty high because that's how we figure shit out.
There's a lot more upside in trying stuff than downside. Worst thing that can happen in the business world downside is bankruptcy. right? Your investment goes to zero, or you lose your job. Well, you can get another job. But if it works out, it's life-changing. Like, it's changed my life. It's changed my, Rob, Cathy, Mike, it's changed all our lives.
Yeah.
And I believe you're absolutely right. Nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Yeah. So what
100%.
what book did you read recently?
Oh, I read so many of them, but this is one I'll have to, it's an Indian name. I don't want to massacre his name.
Yeah.
I'll show it to you after.
Yeah, put it in the notes or
Well,
something.
I love reading as well. I'm reading the book called Medic right now. It talks about it's enterprise sales, which is, again, not a lot of stuff that's like completely catching me off guard, but it's just a couple little pieces that you're like, that makes so much more sense, right? And so good on you.
Called Medic?
Yeah, MEDDIC.
Oh, nice.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll have to
It's
take
an
that from
acronym.
you. I'll have to take that from you. I read a book that was really good. It's called The Bullfrog.
Okay.
No, not The Bullfrog. The Wisdom of the Bullfrog.
The Wisdom of the
Oh.
Bullfrog.
Have you read it? By
No, I've
Admiral
heard of that.
William
and I
H.
don't know who the
McRaven?
hell. No. Yeah. Why do I keep hearing about that? Is it a new book?
Because
Or
it's so good.
Is it?
Yeah, that guy is.
We gotta wish list it right here.
This is the
Yeah,
third
I
time
have
I've heard this.
so many books that I want to
Everyone's got
read.
their phones out.
Yeah.
That okay, I'll have
The
to find it.
Wisdom
I
of the
can't.
Bullfrog.
Yeah.
The Wisdom of the Bullfrog by Admiral William H. McRaven, and he was the highest-ranking Navy SEAL, as far as I understand,
Yeah.
in the U.S. Army at one point, and he oversaw the taking of Bin Laden, and he takes 18 sayings of the Army and he applies it to the business world.
Wow.
And I have to say that, and it's a quick read. It's only 4 hours, and I just find it mind blowing. I love hearing guys like him that just, it's leadership lessons, essentially.
Yeah.
It's not how to make more money, it's just leadership.
Yeah.
And I find that everything that he says applies.
I'll check it out.
I want to, man, there's so, so I kind of want to go back a little bit, Martin, if you don't mind. And the kind of the Black Fly beverage story. And I think what's really cool is that this is all happening here in London.
Yeah.
And I think we talked about it is that I remember Black Fly coming out, and I can't believe it's been 20 years, but it was like this really cool London story,
Yeah, it
about
still is.
Dundas, right?
Yeah, I remember them being
That little-
downtown, that little spot.
that's
and
why-
they quickly outgrew that, I think.
Well, that's why Rob and
Yeah.
Cathy picked that spot.
Yeah.
Is because they felt, because it was working it was like working in a fishbowl,
Yeah.
right? So
yeah.
you could come out of the JLC at that time and see them
JLC,
working.
yeah.
Yes.
And so it was like
I remember
free
that.
publicity,
I
right?
totally
Yeah.
remember that.
And
Smart.
so
Yeah.
that's how they had, the foresight of being able to see this is going to work for us. But they quickly outgrew, and I wasn't with them at that time.
No,
and so
I
then
just-
they move to a more industrial location, which is at the corner of Sovereign Road in Trafalgar.
I remember that too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so that's when I joined, and that was 6,000. So I think I don't even know if it was 1,000 square foot where they were.
Not much.
No, guys.
That's
a restaurant there.
Squire.
Yeah, the Squire Pub and Grill right now.
Yeah, it's not a massive.
No, it's not big at all. It used to be an old bank.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And then when I joined Black Fly, they had moved to Sovereign. That was 6,000 square feet. Now we operate out of 210,000 square feet.
What? I know, right?
Plus another 200 at least of warehousing space. We're rocking anywhere
Half a
between
million-ish square footage?
Yeah, about 500,000 square foot. Yeah.
Damn.
So,
And we use our part.
Yeah.
I'm using
Yeah.
this to give shout outs. We work with Drexel in
Yep.
London.
Nice.
Yeah.
Shout out to Drexel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jason Salmon.
Yeah.
Like, he's a great partner of ours.
I work with them and another company of mine. Actually, they store a lot of our. I own a sports company. They store a lot of our materials and
Yep.
stuff. So, they're great. Yeah. So okay. So you guys work with that. That's great. Like two London companies, working together.
We try to source locally as much as
Yeah,
possible. I
yeah.
mean, all our trades are all from the London area, whether
Yeah.
it's mechanical contractors or electrical contractors.
Yeah.
We buy our cardboard from Ontario. We buy our alcohol from Ontario.
Nice.
We buy our citric acid from Ontario. Our sugar from Ontario.
Yeah.
Our cans, where we can from Ontario. Our plastic from Ontario. It comes comes from China resold through Ontario. But
Yeah,
we
yeah.
we
You're supporting
buy
on businesses.
everything that we
Nice.
can. And I have to tell you this, like Rob and Cathy have always, and I don't want to speak on their behalf, but I think it's important to mention that stuff.
Yeah.
They are the hugest proponents of London that you could think about in terms of business.
I know that about them. I've met them in passing, and they wouldn't know who I am. But you get a vibe around them, right?
London is at the center of everything we do.
Yeah,
great.
which is amazing. But like again, just Londoners not knowing this or not celebrating. I mean, here we are, kind of talking about it, and that was the idea to have you on, celebrate this and that sort of thing. But like, what an amazing London story that Londoners can be proud of, right? You know?
I think so.
Yeah, I do too.
But
I
we
think
don't
this
brag
is
too
great.
much. We don't
No.
talk too much about it.
Well,
We don't brag. I mean,
But that's the beauty of you guys. I don't think you even have your name on the front of the building.
our building is unmarked.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have a website for our brand, but we don't have a website for our non-brand, like all the industrial stuff that we do, the co-packing. It's all grown through word of mouth and through industry connections.
And it sounds like the capacity, I mean, it's not like you have an opportunity to add more time to the day.
Oh, we do actually. We do. Because,
Wait a minute, what?
Well, I do because we can add weekend shifts.
Oh, yeah. Okay,
and then
well,
we can,
a little bit more.
Our job too is to get more efficient.
Yeah,
To
right. Okay,
optimize
so
changeovers,
Yeah.
optimize cleaning time to reduce downtime because that's all we sell is uptime.
I'm glad you brought that up because I was wondering about that too. Like, how do you grow and how do you scale from here? And
From here?
and speaking of you, I think just knowing you, you're like, yeah, we're growing. We're still growing. I'm like,
yeah.
how is that possible?
Well, we've grown, I would say between 10 to 30% annually, like since I joined about 11 years ago in my 12th now.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're on path right now to do another 20% this year, which is crazy.
That is crazy.
It is crazy.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what it is you add days and then you make sure that every hour is more productive than the hour last year, right? So you optimize your changeovers, you speed up your machines, you find your bottlenecks, you eliminate them. And it's a lot of it is
Tweak and
just,
refine.
Yeah,
Now,
optimize.
Ryan opened up as COO, but you landed the gig as like this, like the finance guy, the accounting guy. So where in the mix does the operations start to land on your plate out of this whole journey?
I'll take the role, the finance role, just because of my background. But honestly, operations is probably 45% of my job. Sales is another 45% of my job. Sales / account customer management. And I would say like finance is 10% of my job because I have a really good team there and we have good systems in place and I can just add that much more value in operations and account management sales.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much the split. It's really unorthodox. Like I don't recommend it
Not
to anyone.
No,
I don't recommend it to anyone. Like
No.
it was, and my partners will tell you, like it's not. I've had some years that weren't really balanced, right?
Yeah.
As a lot of entrepreneurs do.
Yeah,
And I
you
think
gotta-
the goal is always to come back into balance, right? I see balance as a wheel, right? It's got spokes, and one of them is like physical health. The other one is family. The other one is love life. The other one is business. The other one is whatever, like mental health, whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that wheel can get out of balance sometimes, but it's your job, right, as a human being, to bring it back into balance. And so now I feel like it's much more in balance.
Okay, so let's talk about that. I'm glad you went there because this is something that I've known you personally for a few years now, and we were talking about this off mic. I've always been fascinated with like how calm you are, and I know what you do, and the company you're with. I've known that since we met, and I'm like, how is it possible? How are you always so calm? And I think you said, I'll let you say it, but you really spent a lot of time getting your systems, your process in place to make sure that like you just have full trust in the systems and the people. I wrote people down too. So talk about that because like I've always been fascinated about that with you until you kind of explained, well, yeah, like I'm calm because I trust in what I built or what we built,
Exactly. I have different models because that's how I simplify it in my head. You always have to have models to dumb down the truth. And the way that I look at a company, I look at it on two different axes, right? Systems, people, tools. That's one axis that I look at it. And the other one that I look at it is vendors, employees, which is like the intersection of people and customers, right? And so I always try to have harmony between my supply chain, vendors, and customers and us. I try to make it into balance, right? We try to have everyone happy. And if you think that you can, screw your vendors out of 10 cents because you can, that's usually a mistake, because, industries come and go, and sometimes you're on top, sometimes you're on the bottom, and you got to look at that long cycle, I think. So whenever I am in a power position with my vendors, I try not to exercise it. I will sometimes for pricing, but never in a way that's demeaning or condescending or abrasive, right? And they do the same thing to me. There have been many times where I'm in trouble because the industry supply has shrunk, and then they help you. So trust in your supply chain, and collect and hand out favors to your customers, collect and hand out favors to your vendors and to your staff, right? Help them out. You don't have to. Everything is on a. You can always make exceptions based on the circumstances. So that's that vertical.
I love that.
That axis. The other axis is tools, systems, and people. If you have the right systems in place and the right people, and you give these people the right tools to do their job, tools could be money, but it could also be, developing software, right? Or, sometimes it's mechanical things, such as actually the right tools. And you give them that, then the machine kind of runs itself, right? I look at business. I find you're saying why I don't look stressed. I look because it's too abstract.
Because it's not true.
Well, I do have stress.
Just manage it well.
I do have stress.
Of course.
It's important to manage it, but I find it very abstract because I view managing a business almost like being a parent, in the sense that you also give, you have systems at home. Right, you have processes at home. Right, when we're going to hockey, this is what happens. Right, and then your kids have tools. Right, they know how to open the garage door, and then you kind of develop something that works, and then you put people in charge of these processes and these tools, and you kind of just step aside and just look at it, and eventually it grows into something more than what you created, because the people are smart and they keep adding to systems and tools, and eventually it becomes this living, breathing organism, just like a child, I find. Anyways, I don't know what your experience is, and it becomes too big. If you're only working Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and you can see everything and you could be there all the time, that's different. In our case, you're running at nights, you're running on the weekends, you're not there, you're sleeping. So you have to make sure they have well-established, expectations about what should happen in which scenario, and people in place to execute on that. So you're asking why I'm stressed. I am stressed, but I'm not really at this point, because the system works. And so it's about managing that system just like you manage a football team. You have your offensive coordinator, your defensive coordinator, your special teams coordinator. You've got all your players, you've got your assistant coach, and you're the coach.
Yeah, the coach can't go out there and throw touchdowns.
Right.
Correct.
You got to rely on the people that you've assembled to get the job done. And it's a common theme that we get to, which is one of the things I love most about this pod. And it comes back to just trust, man. Like, you know what?
Yes.
Your people, maybe, they're junior, but they're eager. They got a good attitude. And you know what? Maybe they can't quite do it as good as you out of the gate. But you trust them to figure it out. You give them the tools and the systems, and you kind of let them go, right?
Yeah, and guide. I mean, your role as a coach and a business leader is really to, make everyone prioritize. So make sure everyone's pulling in the right directions, right? With the right goals, right? Maybe they think this is important, but it's not. This is important. So you got to make sure that you direct people.
Man. Yeah. That reminds me, hilarious. Like that just triggered a thought. So I coach a U8 hockey team. We play half ice. They're a competitive team. And our goal is to teach these kids to puck pressure, right? Pressure will create turnovers. It'll give you more chances. So we talk like dog on a bone. We're going to be dogs on a bone, right? And we had a game on Sunday. And man, they were relentless on the puck. It was awesome to see. But the over pursuit left guys alone behind us at times.
Let's
right?
balance it.
Right? So literally as coaches, we had practice last night, and that's what we talked about before. Like, man, so proud of how, and we gave them, we let them know that they can't leave guys behind them alone. But after reflecting after the room and then, the next day and before practice last night, I'm like, man, we got to pump their tires because they did exactly what we fucking asked them to do.
Yeah.
Right? They were relentless on the puck.
Yeah.
And they over pursued.
That's a good point.
They over pursued because the goal of puck pressure ignored the fact that we got to defend behind us, right? And we played against a great squad who had smart players, and they were sneaking behind us. And you know, we gave up chances that we shouldn't have probably given up, but we emphasized the puck pressure so much that we kind of left behind the defend the net.
Do you relate that to business in
course.
terms of like, you know, like it exposes some blind spots or some weaknesses that you also need to holistically
or like Martin's saying, like, you know, you tell them this is a goal of ours, and the team's sort of tunnel vision, and you got to stop them and say, hold on a second. Yes, important, but we also have to consider these things. So we can't miss these because we're so focused over here.
Right. So I mean, I live this every day because, you know, we have a maintenance department, we have a quality department, we have a production department, we have a mixing department, we have a logistics department. And every time that we issue, hey, you guys need to do this, they view that as their priority and they're laser focused on that. And unless they know that there's another competing priority that's more important, they will prioritize that. So that's why we have a leadership meeting every morning, right, where we all sit around the table, all the different departments, and we talk about what the day's going to look like and what were the issues from yesterday. And that allows them to view how their world fits into the larger picture.
And that's awesome.
Yeah,
man.
it's an awesome tool.
Come on.
It's an awesome tool.
Like, this is like a mastermind in how to run a
I
business, you know.
Well, I won't take the credit on that one. It's actually one of my employees that said, hey, we should do this. And I said, you know what? That's a great idea.
Seems like it makes sense.
And then we did it. And since we've been having our daily meetings in the morning, I mean, we're not a trading desk here. We're like on Wall Street. We're a manufacturing business. But every morning we have food safety, health and safety, quality, maintenance, capital projects, finance, logistics, production, all sit in the same room, and then we talk, and we all understand how we fit into this big piece of the puzzle, and then we just go out and, you know, do our thing.
It explains a lot, eh? Like that explains a lot. You can't grow at the pace you've grown
without that.
If you're not coordinated as a unit, right? And that's probably, you know, one of those underlying things that exist in a lot of successful businesses that somebody on the outside looking in doesn't really understand or see.
I mean, we have 250 employees that work. Well, our brand sales team is all across Canada. I bet you we probably have 30 to 40 sales people, sales managers, territory managers, account managers, like in remote locations working by themselves. And that in itself is hard to bring together. Then in our plant, it's just a machine that never stops. And you as a human being have to stop. And so communication is very important, not only through the departments, but through the clock.
Yeah.
From 1 a.m. to 7 a.m. So you got to pass the torch. And so I find, but you know what? I think that's the coolest, one of the coolest things to do is like to set up all these systems and kind of just, you push it and you let it go. And then you watch it. And then sometimes you need to tweak it a little bit. You bring it back and you guide it. And that's, you're saying like, why am I not stressed? Because to me, sometimes I find it so abstract, like it's not even real. That's just my, and I don't know if other business leaders are humble enough to say, oh, I don't control everything. I just don't.
Not all of them.
And I don't see everything.
Yeah, no, you know what? I think that's a good, I mean, for any business, whether it's, you know, you're a really small business, a medium-sized business like myself, or like a massive business like you, it's like control the controllables, trust in your process, don't stress about, and I'm guilty as charged, I stress about a lot of the things that I just can't control. No matter how hard I try, I'm not going to control how this person is acting or how a potential client or whatever is not respond. Like, there's so many things I stress about I shouldn't be, and I should be focusing on the things I can control. I think is what you're very good at doing, you know?
Well, I don't even think it's a natural talent. I think it's just like, as you evolve, you kind of have to go that way, because if not, you burn out or go crazy, or you don't want to be in business anymore.
But that burnout is probably why that happens so much to new entrepreneurs, is because you're there's just too much that you're worried about, that it's like, look, like stop worrying about all these things, control the controllables, and then the stress is more manageable. I think.
also, I mean, this is something my dad told me when I was young, and I still remember. You know, it's not about making a decision with 100% of the information. You have to work with 60% of the information, maybe at best, and try to make educated decision into, you know, those situations, right? And then you develop kind of a track record, just like a batter in baseball, where you're like, you know, I'm batting. The best batter in baseball was like what?
4 out of
Average
10
Hall of
times.
Yeah, the average Hall of Famer bats 300.
Yeah, so
career
there you
batting
go.
average.
Yeah.
7 out of
Yeah.
10 times he's.
So if you can have a 90% or 80% ratio of making good decisions with 60% of the information, I think in the business
Well,
world, that's a great thing.
Oh, yeah.
and it's this risk of paralysis by analysis, right? Like you can't move forward because you don't think you have enough information to make a decision, but sitting idle isn't the right decision, right?
Sometimes sitting idle is the worst decision.
You have to move, right? So like
Yeah.
you said, you don't have all of the information, but bet on yourself, trust yourself.
Trust
you're
your
not
judgment.
Yes.
There's a reason why you're here, and you can't hatch a chicken in a microwave, and that goes. That's experience. That's experience.
Yeah.
You can't come out of school and say I'm experienced, because to be experienced, you have to have seen various different scenarios and know the outcome of such decision in all of those scenarios. And eventually, you kind of okay, well, this is the worst thing that can happen. I'm going to go that way.
Yeah.
And if I go that way, you know, you may not think it's a big deal. It's a huge deal.
Yeah.
Right. So sometimes risks lie under the surface, and experience will bring that out. And sometimes you think that there's a risk, but it's very manageable, and the downside is not that big.
It's low.
Yeah. Good
And that's
point.
experience.
Yeah.
And because we can
That's
get
why
in
they
our-
pay old guys more than the young guys.
Yeah,
They get more money
yeah.
as you get older.
You know, and I've said
Hopefully.
it. I've said at times. I've said at times too. Like, you know, you're not paying me for my hourly rate. You're paying for me for the hours I put in over the decades that I've been grinding it out. Right.
Yeah.
I might be able to come in and be just as productive or more in a shorter amount of time because I've taken my licks. You know how many times I've been knocked on my ass?
Oh yeah.
Right? Like you start, and I try to teach my kids that too. I'm like, fellas, like, Dad's being hard on you right now, but life is going to be way harder. And if you can't start to deal with just things, you know, sometimes you have to do
simple things.
Yeah, the simple
Yeah.
things. Like
Yeah.
I make my kids carry their hockey bags.
Yeah.
My young ones hate it. Why do I carry my bag? Do you want to play hockey? Carry your hockey bag.
Look, man,
right?
I
Like
think
that's a
those-
decision.
yeah.
They complain like so-and-so's dad's carrying their bag. I'm like, oh, they're not my kid.
But how you do one thing is how you do everything. It's like, do you make your bed in the morning or do you leave
Hey,
it?
whoa.
You know what I mean?
This is the opening of William H. McRaven's book.
So that's what. So
Make
I
your
have.
bed in-
Yeah.
I
So I have
do.
heard this guy. Okay. So now I know who you're talking about. He's that guy
How you
that
do
make
one
your,
thing is how you do everything.
Okay. So there you go. So I do. Yeah. So
That's where you get it from.
Yeah. And I mean, I read too once in a while. But I'm reading Malcolm Gladwell's Tipping Point right now. It's great, actually.
that's-
and then, it's
an oldie, but a goodie.
Yeah, it's a really good one. But yeah, it's true, right? I mean, those, like Scott, you said, like making your kids carry their bags is it might seem insignificant, but it's so significant in the grand scheme of things because, you know, that's just those are the easy things, right? You start doing the easy things for your kids, easy things for your business, easy things for your employees. It's going to be a slippery slope, you know? Definitely.
Well,
do
of
hard
success. Of success.
Yeah.
It's about building character, really.
Yeah.
And instilling the right values. It's not about carrying the bag. It's about same thing.
Yeah.
Like when I left Bay Street, then you're there. You don't have an assistant to make your photocopies anymore. You don't have anyone to book your lunches anymore, right? So you have to have that humility and that, you know, of just doing everything yourself, which is
beneath you.
fine. And if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, I think that's where you have to start.
Yeah.
You have to be able to humble yourself to do anything that's required to be successful.
Yeah.
From there, you can improve your situation by adding team members that will share the burden of these tasks that may be unpleasant to you. But you have to start there.
Yeah.
And if you're not willing to do it yourself, you probably shouldn't be in business, even though you're not
agree.
doing it yourself
Yep.
anymore.
That grit, that grind, you know, like selling the product and then putting on a hat and then being the delivery guy to deliver the product. Like, can you do that? Are you going to be able to be humble enough to be able to do that?
You should.
You should. You totally should. You should be a Swiss Army knife as a business owner, first and foremost.
Not only that, you shouldn't be telling your employees to do anything that you wouldn't do yourself.
Love
I
that
agree.
too.
Yeah.
And William McRaven talks about that,
Yeah.
right? Like being leading by example, not leading because I said so.
Yeah.
Right? Earn respect as opposed to demanding it.
Yeah.
So those are all the things, right?
Respect is earned, man. It's not given.
It is.
100%.
And it's earned
Yeah.
on the battlefield. In business, there's a battlefield in various scenarios, but
Yes.
you see what I mean.
100%.
And you should be first one in and last one out. And you're saying, like calm. One thing I want to say too is that I think as a leader, you have to be a tower of strength in the storm. People are looking at you. And I try to instill this to my leaders, my up and comers, that people are looking at you.
Yeah.
And you have to be calm and you have to project that aura of, strength and you're grounded and you are in control.
Yeah.
And it's time for you to lead.
That
So
shit's
lead.
contagious, right? It spreads, right? But on the contrary, if you're frazzled and rattled and running around like you're a ball of stress, that shit is contagious too.
It's a big problem.
And then that takes productivity, in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
I always tell my people, complain up. Don't complain sideways. Don't complain down. Complain to me, complain to whoever you want to, but never project weakness. I think you have to be humble enough to say, I don't know. Let's talk about it. Let's figure it out. It's not about being a know-it-all. It's about confidence, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that humility again, being able to say, look, oh no, I never thought it. I don't really know how to handle that quite yet.
But let's figure it out together.
Let's
figure it out.
I have
figure it out.
confidence in our abilities.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't have confidence that my decision is the right one.
Yeah.
I have confidence that we will come
As
to the right decision as a team.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that.
Can we talk a little bit, Martin, about, maybe the industry? I don't know. I'm just curious about the trend. We talked about this a little bit. This trend of like non-alcoholic
it's huge.
beverages, and I'm really starting to see that, and
It's huge.
I'm just fascinated about like why that's happening. Is it the younger generation that are just a little bit more health conscious? Is it overall as a society we are, or what's do you know what's going on there?
Yeah.
Potentially.
Well, again, I wish Mike and Cathy and Rob were here to talk about this because I'm just witnessing what I see. They're in it every day because they're out there selling alcoholic beverages.
They're so they're doing the marketing and the front, the branding and all that.
They deal with all the branding,
Yeah,
the flavor
yeah.
development,
Right.
all the relationship with all the liquor boards throughout Canada. They've done
Okay.
a fantastic job. I mean, Black Fly, I think, is number 4 or 5 domestic brands in Canada.
Wow.
So that's huge. And the only, that's not true. White Claw is independent, but then
Okay.
after that, Black Fly would be an independent
Nice.
company too.
Yeah, that's impressive, man.
And so what we're seeing is a big shift from alcohol to non-alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you nailed it on the head. I think part of it is a societal shift, if that's a word, because I'm a French native
Yeah.
speaker.
I think that's a word. We'll go with that.
Sometimes I make up words. But I think as a society,
I make up about 10 words every episode, so don't worry about it.
there's various things that are happening, right? I think one of the first is a trend in society towards being healthier. And a lot of times that means less alcohol, okay? But within that, there's also trends within the alcohol section, right? So from beer, from wine, from spirits. Well, I shouldn't say from spirits because spirits has various spirits. There's brown spirits, white spirits.
Right.
Like all that moves. So the spirits portion, I would say, is growing, but not because the population is growing, right? But the non-alc portion is growing faster. Within the spirits section, RTD is growing faster than other categories like beer or brown spirits. So there's major current like the Gulf Stream, and then there's like undercurrents within the currents. So RTD is doing really, really well in the spirits world. Spirits are still growing in general, right? But the non-alc portion is growing faster because people are, more health conscious. Like, our kids, they're not beer drinkers. I don't know if they'll ever be beer drinkers.
No, I
We
don't
drink
think so.
beer. You'll have a beer with me if I get
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
one.
Yeah.
What about your kids?
No, probably
They
not.
don't reach for a beer.
No, and I have a theory here too, and actually, we were chatting about it with some buddies on the weekend, and it's like, man, like my oldest is in grade 9, and he's played high school football. He's got a few new buddies, but he's got his core group of buddies that he went to elementary school with, and they go to one buddy's house in particular whose mom just lets like 7 or 8 grade 9s have a sleepover, and I'm like, she's nuts, because that's not happening at my house. I'm not interested. It's chaos over here enough as it is.
Yeah.
I need 9 grade 9s over here. But I think there's another element layered into the social media world, right? We didn't grow up with that. We could get drunk underage and do a bunch of stupid shit, and nobody would ever know about it. Nowadays, though, everyone has their phones out.
Yeah.
The risk of doing something stupid and being caught for it is higher. And then you see like these pages, like, you know, drunk people doing things, for example, and these kids see these drunk idiots like literally almost killing themselves. So I don't know, like, and again, this is just me speculating, but I think there's something there where it's not cool to get drunk.
Yeah.
Like, it's just
I think
there's this social pressure, right? Of being caught on camera doing something stupid. B,
potentially.
and B, intermixed in their scrolling through their feeds are all this health conscious stuff.
Yeah.
I've never thought about that.
It was something I thought about this weekend. We were chatting with some buddies.
Yeah.
I know that kids don't drink beer.
Theory.
The new generation doesn't drink beer. That I know. The stats are clear about that. Wine, I'm not too sure what's happening with wine. It doesn't really impact us. And I know that RTDs are up because people, so here's how I would explain why RTDs are so popular.
When you say it's ready to drink.
Ready to drink.
Which,
like this.
So like it's ready, it's like just ready.
Well, the concept is that you can make it at home with various ingredients, but we give it to you ready to drink.
Got it. Okay. Yep. Cool.
Right? So you don't have to mix anything, essentially. Right?
Yep.
So it's a pre-mix, it's a mixture. It's cool,
Nice.
essentially.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think that, you know, if you look at all the brands right now, innovation is the driver. For brands like us, and even energy drinks are the same thing.
Yeah.
You probably shed 10% of your portfolio every year, and you need to reinvent 10% of it. Maybe more, maybe 10 to 20, actually.
Wow.
And the kids really like that innovation. And so they got like unlimited amounts of flavors, right? Unlimited amount of spirits.
Yeah.
And that's driving that. And I think that that's just a generational thing. They like that stuff, just like our parents like beer. You're probably right when you say some of them, you know, don't like the social media aspect of it, as if you're drunk. But I think like the non-alc movement comes more like our age. Parents that are just like, okay, well, I have a fatty liver and my blood pressure is high, and
could be,
you know what,
right?
It's impacting my pickleball scores, and you know what, I'm going to try and cut back a little bit because you were talking about your little boondoggle there like last week and felt like shit. Well, a lot of people don't want to feel like shit.
100%.
Right? And so a lot of that is
we
like
have
even
less
our age.
beer. You know, my dad's, I could grab a beer. My dad had Coors Light in the fridge all the time, but I don't really have a lot of beer in my fridge. So my son goes to the fridge. I guess, you know, they're just not seeing it as much as we saw it potentially. So that could be right too.
When we were
setting an example.
Younger, there was like 1 or 2 non-alcoholic beers, and they were trash.
Were there? I don't even
Now
know.
the technology has come so far.
Yeah,
and it's
so
really good.
true.
You don't now.
point,
you can
man.
be out. You can be socializing. You can be at a bar, or restaurant, or club, or whatever you're doing, and there's reasonably flavored, good tasting
Non-alc.
There's
options.
amazing non-alcohol,
right?
Yeah.
So I think that also has part of the equation. Is there's been people who
Supply
don't.
drives demand,
Yeah.
right? If it's cold, it's sold.
That's it.
So, like, just by having good options
good.
available for people will gravitate towards that.
Yeah.
Like, I used to laugh about non-alc beer. I used to like, oh, what is this? Tastes like crap.
Yeah.
I have a non-alc beer every day now.
Yeah, there's some good
right?
ones.
But I also drink coolers.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this. I love alcohol. I just like to drink with a purpose.
Yeah.
Right? I don't like to mow my lawn and have a cooler at 11 on Saturday because I'm by myself.
Yeah.
I'll have 5, 6, 7, 8 of them on the Saturday night because now I'm with some friends.
Yeah.
But I won't just drink by myself mowing the lawn
Me
anymore.
neither.
No. Yeah.
But I love alcohol. I love alcohol. You know?
No, but it becomes habitual, right? Like I've gotten past it now because you know I've scaled back the adult beverages over the last few years, big time. For sure, I have.
Yeah.
Right, like I've done 75 hard in the past where there's no booze for 75 days. Right,
Yeah.
like I've done the dry Januaries, not this January, but like even just like summertime, I fire up the barbecue. It's like It's like, fuck, I need a cold
Crack a
beer.
bevy.
I got to have a cold pint while I'm barbecuing.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
But it just can't be an automatic.
That's the grind and the challenge is having that discipline. And for anyone who's out there who like, 'cause I've had buddies like 75 hard. I'm not sure if you know what.
No,
that
I
is.
know Dry January.
And Andy Frizilla did this challenge at 75 days, no alcohol, clean eating. You got to read 10 pages of a real book, physical book. Audio books and like Kindles don't count. It's like a physical book. You got to do 2 workouts, 2 45-minute workouts every day. One of them has to be outside. You got to drink a gallon of water. For Canadians, it's roughly 4 liters.
Ew, not my gig.
You talk about, well, I mean, you'd be at the.
How do you have a job doing that? Like, where do you find time to work?
Yeah.
But when you're going through that, people are like, oh, I could never not drink. And it was kind of interesting going through it because when you're definitive, when you know, it, like when I not that I didn't barbecue when I was doing 75 hard, but now I'm just definitive in my mindset. I know drinking isn't even an option. So you're not thinking about it. You're not reaching for it. You don't open the fridge and see a 12 pack sitting there screaming at you, right? Just, so I think sometimes we're in our own way, we're in our own head, and we've made this assumption that we can't be disciplined enough to not grab a beverage.
Yeah.
But sometimes when you just got that, like the dry Jan, it's definitive. It's like, I'll survive January.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just shapes you. I mean, like I said, to me, it's drink with a purpose. I'd rather drink. You'll never catch me socializing without a drink. I'm at the restaurant, I'm having wine.
Yeah.
It's just those moments where I don't need to, like I won't. And, also like we talked about like beer decreasing and non-alc growing faster than alc, even though alc is growing. Black Fly as a brand has benefited from another tendency, which is more real. So we use real cane sugar, not high fructose corn syrup. We have real fruit juices. We have real Canadian vodka, right? We have all these things that are real. And, yes, alcohol, it's not recommended by your doctor as part of your daily dose of vitamins. But if you're going to have something, which you will, because we're alive and we have to indulge and have fun, you might as well have something that's good for you. And Black Fly has really benefited from the more natural, less fake, less artificial, less sweet movement within the cooler movement itself, right? So the larger societal movement, then you have alc, non-alc, then you have RTD within the category, and then within RTD, you also have more real. So Black Fly has really had the wind in its sails as a brand in terms of being in all the right segments, sub-segments, and sub-sub-segments of the industry. So.
Okay, but you had mentioned innovation. And I think that seems to be a core part.
It is.
Even from the way that you were talking about how the bottles are designed, how that was like innovative from the start.
Yeah. When you in our industry, you innovate on liquid, packaging, right? And
branding, maybe.
Branding, yeah. You create sub-brands and stuff like that, different brand stories. But, I give all the credit, again, to my partners, Rob, Cathy, Mike, their son Isaiah, the whole family plays a big role in making the brand successful in terms of developing flavors, packagings, new outlets. Like this year, for example, the deregulation of the industry in Ontario has been a big positive for us. We weren't sure how it was going to go, but it's actually really impacted our sales positively.
In terms of alcohol being able to be sold at variety stores and
grocery stores. Yeah, it's like you said, if it's cold, it's sold. Right?
If it's cold, it's sold. We really didn't know what was going to be the impact.
Right, I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
I do believe that the province rushed it through due to the strike that was happening. Pushing that through took a lot of power away from, I guess, the union at that point. And but it's actually been beneficial for us. I don't know if it's beneficial for everyone, but for us it has. It's been a net positive on sales.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's we live outside of the city, and there's like a little store. They sell everything from hammers to whatever, and there's Black Fly in there.
There you go.
And it's like, it's great, man.
Is it cold?
Yeah, damn right it's cold.
There you go.
And I, but the fact that you're able to extend and connect with potential customers that maybe you may not have before, I think is kind of a cool thing.
It is cool. I was on the fence. I am happy that it happened, but honestly, like if you put something out there in a format and in a setting that's appealing to consumers, sometimes a consumer will just reach out and grab it, and if they like it, it creates recurring opportunity. what you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Wayne Gretzky, baby.
But if you're not on shelf, you're not taking a shot. If you're on shelf, then at least you're taking a shot at someone buying your product. So just the fact that it's out there in more spaces, in front of more people, naturally increases sales, I believe. In our case, anyways.
Well, this has been a pretty awesome ride. I think our listeners will agree that there's a lot of tangible sort of takeaways that you shared with us today. I'm honored and grateful for the opportunity to have you on. Thanks for sharing the story.
I'm honored. Thank you.
Hey, no, the pleasure.
And
the pleasure is ours.
Yeah.
The pleasure is ours.
Yeah, no, it's been great. This is, you know, when we were talking about this off mic, there's a lot in this episode that is different than other episodes. Just because, you know, we don't having you on, someone with your experience and you know a larger company, and the fact that you play so many different roles, you're able to really bring that experience, that knowledge, and hopefully help our viewers get really inspired. So
again, I'm not going to take credit for everything. I have a fantastic team. Like the team makes it happen.
For sure.
I just provide guidance and vision. That's all it is.
Well, you're a great ambassador for the brand and for, you know, helping others, you know, kind of like create a blueprint for how maybe they can structure their company, whether it be small or large. Or what's up ahead for Black Fly and for you guys?
Well, the brand, we still got ways to go in Canada. We're still growing out west. We're growing in the prairies.
Nice.
We're very present in Ontario and the East Coast, but we're growing everything west of Ontario, and even Ontario is growing, but the west is really where we're seeing most of our growth. And on the co-pack side, I mean, we're probably going to start thinking about having a new plant.
Oh my God.
Right? So do it again, which I don't know if I have this. I do know I have the stomach for. I don't know if I feel like doing it, but I know we're going to do it.
Yeah.
Find more great people to help you. Right?
Well, because in business, I mean, you know how it is. If you're not moving forward, you're moving back. There is no such thing as static. It's either you can move forward at a slow pace or a fast pace, but you got to move forward.
Yeah. Absolutely. If you're not growing, you're dying.
Yeah.
And I was talking about a book earlier, like the Almanac of Naval Ravikant.
There it is.
Almanac of Naval Ravikant. I thought that was a really good book for entrepreneurs.
Good stuff.
I'm gonna check it out.
And The Wisdom of the Bullfrog by William H. McRaven, I thought was also very good.
Yeah. Good.
Thanks for sharing, man. Thanks for coming on. This is
First podcast ever for me, so thanks for
job,
trying
man.
this. I wasn't sure how this was going to go.
No, you did great, buddy.
I crushed it.
Appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I just want to say thank you to my partners, to my team, you know, for making it happen, for you guys for inviting me, and for my wife for being such a supportive and loving person in my life.
Shout out to all the spouses, man.
Yeah.
I'm included that you know, support us on this crazy ride of entrepreneurship. So
absolutely.
Good on you. Martin, continued success.
Thank you.
And thanks for your time today, man. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Okay,
That's a
good
wrap.
stuff. Yeah, baby.
Beautiful.
Thanks,
There
guys.
it is.
That was awesome.
Another great episode. Thanks for joining us. Please support our podcast. By supporting us, you can go to YouTube, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, go to our website, hustleandgrindpod.com. That way you can go and you can apply to be a guest. Listen to us anywhere that you listen to your podcast, Spotify, Apple, all the channels. But we really appreciate your support. Keep listening. We have a lot of great episodes and a lot of great guests ready to go. We're going to keep coming hard at you here and digging into the hustle and grind of what it takes to be an entrepreneur and a business owner.